How have you seen a person's life be ruined in a single day? Watched a kid get an underage alcohol violation. Wouldn't normally be a life ruiner, but he and I were both college students at a university that he had been on the news a lot for drinking and party culture. The culture has been the same since the 70s, but they didn't like the bad press, so they cracked down. Like 2 months before this happened, they instituted a new policy. It used to be that you would deal with the legal implications. Then they would make you go to an alcohol education program, and you wouldn't be able to study abroad. Now they suspend you for the rest of the semester, make you move out if you live on campus, and they cancel any financial aid the school is providing. I didn't know him well, but I do know that he, like me, had student loans on top of a generous financial aid package. And because of the aid program we were in, it's unlikely he could afford to come back without the financial aid package from the school. Man came in to rob the bar I was drinking in. Bartender told him to get fucked. Man shot him twice in the crotch and walked out. Hopefully he missed anything too important. We were standing on a downtown corner watching the 4th of July parade when we saw the parents of one of the players on a soccer team I coached talk to someone and began running like hell through the crowd with panic-stricken faces. Someone came to our door later and told us that Matt, their 10-year-old son, had jumped off of a float to get some candy thrown by someone on another float and had tripped. The float he was on ran over his head, killing him. Our son was on the same float and hadn't gotten home yet. One of the most depressing moments in my life. The parents were never the same. The people on the floats in our town never threw candy again. I think of Matt every 4th of July. A similar thing happened in my town probably 15 years ago. Ever since then, they banned throwing candy. My friend's husband produced and consumed child porn, including some photos of their children and nephews. She found out when DHS raided their apartment. It tore her life apart. She's doing well now though. Divorced, obviously, and he no longer has any parental rights. She's still struggling to help her kids process the whole thing. My friend was getting ready for work when the FBI came with a search warrant and took her husband's PC. There was child porn and he swore he had no idea. He'd gotten a bunch of porn and that was just apparently included. She believed him and stood up for him. Then they showed her a clip from their guest shower of her young niece and his dumbass faces at the start as he adjusted the focus. Federal prison, 28 months. My neighbor knocked on the front door early one morning. We never met. He introduced himself and wanted me to know why there might be a lot of cars parked in front of the house. All 3 of his children had died in a car accident the night before. I've been reading these comments for a couple of hours now. This is one thing that hit me in the gut. This man has lost everything, and he is still being considerate of his neighbors. One day during my junior year in high school, back in the 1980s, I came downstairs on a Saturday morning and my mom asked me, "Do you know Bob Johnson?" I said, "Yeah, I sit next to him in English." She turned the local newspaper around and there was Bob on the front page in handcuffs. He had murdered his dad and tried to cover it up. Apparently, his dad had been raping him for years and Bob finally had enough. Shot his dad in the head with a .22 while he slept. Fortunately, the courts were lenient. They gave him a new identity, moved him out to somewhere in the Midwest, and gave him counseling. I guess this one day ruined his dad's life and saved his own. I saw him on Facebook a couple years ago. He's using his real name, is married with kids, and is working as a driver for one of the big parcel delivery services. I'm so glad his life turned out pretty normal. Not his real name. Kids who kill their parent, rapists, can end up with serious jail time. Glad it worked out differently that time. When I was in EMT school, we were told about a paramedic student. Instructor was a paramedic as well, who observed the stabbing call. They arrive at the bar and see a dude with a knife in his abdomen. Medic student takes lead and pulls the knife out. Something you never do, as I'm sure you know. Senior medic loses his fucking mind at this dumbass, asking him what the fuck he was thinking. Student freaks out and, you guessed it, puts the fucking knife back in. The patient died as a result. Student lost the chance of having any good job, not even just in EMS, and was charged with the death of the patient. Might have been manslaughter, I don't remember. His entire life was ruined because he freaked out and made a mistake on a call. Not a rookie mistake or a common slip-up, but in half a minute he ruined his life. Holy shit. Also the fact the series of events was 1, man stabbed. 2, thank God EMS is here. 3, man stabbed again. A girl in my class got caught with a thermos full of vodka, and when the teacher caught her, she got sent to the principal's office. Well, when the principal asked her why she was drinking, the girl told him that she had been sleeping with the school resource officer. Dude was a cop stationed at the school having sex with a 10th grader. Got dragged out of the school by officers that worked alongside him. At the court hearing, they found out he was having sex with 2 more girls at the school. His wife and 2 kids were in the courtroom to support him because he told them he was innocent. That kind of caved when one of the girls had a video of the two of them having sex. Our former SRO is now dating a former student who is the same age as me. We graduated in 2015. He left his wife and kids for her. We all shuddered when we remembered how often she was in his office during the school day, having lunch, hanging out, whatever. When I was like 9 or something, a boy from my class was killed by his mother before she committed suicide. I saw it on the news that night, only to learn it was him the next morning. We all got sat down in like 4th grade, that's about 9 or 10 here, and told to be extra nice to one boy who was returning to school after being gone. I later found out that his dad had killed his mother and himself in front of the boy. I have no idea how you come back from that, even if the other kids are nice for a few days, but kudos to our school for trying, I guess. Watched a mom and her kid on a boat escorted by law enforcement back to the dock. Her boyfriend had gone swimming off the boat. The wind pushed the vessel away from him. She didn't know anything about how to turn it around to move it closer. It kept getting farther. He kept swimming harder. He eventually slipped under and was recovered 80 feet down a few days later. I'll never forget the look on her face. Never. He was a 28-year-old airman. Peak health. Wear a life jacket, people. You are not stronger than Mother Nature. And don't leave a boat without someone who can drive it safely. When I was a kid, I lived in an apartment complex. One of the families had 3 young kids. One day, the parents needed to run some errands, so they hired a babysitter to watch the kids. The babysitter fell asleep, and one of the kids started playing with some matches. The parents came home to huge billowing clouds of smoke and fire coming from all the windows. All 3 kids and the babysitter died. They were only gone for about an hour. I didn't know my biological father. He remarried after my mother dumped him, and he had 3 kids with his new wife. When the oldest was 12, biological dad and wife left her in charge and went out to the movies or something and came back to a house in flames and 3 dead daughters. When I finally met him decades later, he told me that he smelled gas in the house that morning but didn't do anything about it, so he had to live with that. Doing an MRI on a 33-year-old healthy man because he was a bit dizzy, and finding a golf ball tumor in his brain. Read the radiology report, Google type of tumor, finding only 5% survive. Edit. I should also say that I do a lot of 30-something-year-olds who come in for head issues, and almost every single one of them are fine. Is that 5% survival for people with that type of tumor due to them being unidentified until after death, or 5% survival after being diagnosed? Not my personal experience, but a national news story. A van full of college students got into an accident and most of them died, but one girl survived with major injuries. She had facial trauma and was hospitalized for weeks. She kept repeating another girl's name as she was recovering. Turns out, she was saying her own name. She and another similarly built, same hair and eye-colored female passenger were mistakenly identified for each other in the aftermath of the crash. Her family had a funeral for her, and the other girl's family were the ones at her bedside before the misidentification was realized. I cannot even imagine the suffering of thinking your daughter was alive for weeks and then learning she's been dead all along, or having a funeral for a child who is actually alive and you didn't know. And here's the link. I remember that story. I wanted to be happy for the family that suddenly got their daughter back, almost like a dream. Then there's the family that suddenly had to realize that the daughter they thought survived was long gone. So horrible. Having a friend whose boss got into a gnarly car accident a week ago. Today, she was officially told she's paralyzed from the waist down. She was also notified today that her husband died, non-car accident related. I don't know exactly why he passed, but to go from a happy life with your soulmate to not being able to walk and have your life partner is something I can't imagine recovering from soon. That's literally the stuff of my nightmares. I work as a registered nurse in a hospital in Kentucky. A patient came in through the ER raising hell and yelling things like, "I want to donate my organs, this place sucks, fuck all of you," etc. He stomped out of the ER entrance, and a CNA, nurse's assistant, followed him out to attempt calming him down. He brandished a .45 and blew his brains out in front of the young assistant. He died. Organs couldn't be harvested, and she is in therapy. Jesus, that's awful. Why couldn't the organs be donated, though? Are you not allowed to harvest organs from someone who's committed suicide?
Watch our other videos and subscribe 'cause you're not a scrub.